Hey guys, it's Dr. May. How's it going today? Hope you guys are doing pretty well. So today's topic is about reassurance seeking. Okay, and this is something that we all do from time to time, but others might do it a little bit more frequently, a little bit more compulsively. So we're going to talk about how to bring it back into balance if you're one of the people that tend to do it a little excessively. Okay, so here we go. Sorry. There we go. Reassurance seeking. So as you can see from the picture, reassurance seeking is something that happens in a relationship. So you might seek reassurance from a parent, a teacher, a boss, a doctor, a therapist, almost anybody. It depends on whether you think the person might have an answer for you that's going to make you feel better. Okay. And we seek reassurance when something didn't happen yet, but we're sort of in that middle ground of the not knowing, of the uncertainty. And because we have such a hard time sitting with uncertainty, we're trying to seek certainty by getting reassurance from another person, right? So that's why this starts to happen. Okay, so there's kind of a difference in extremes of, normal versus, let's say, compulsive reassurance seeking. So at a normal level, it might happen once in a while. Maybe you're a little anxious about something and you happen to ask for some reassurance from somebody about how it's going to be okay later. And you're able to take in the response and kind of remember it and allow it to reassure you and make you feel better. But if it becomes compulsive, as you could probably guess, it's done a lot more frequently. It's hard to internalize and remember the response. It doesn't satisfy you. So you have to feel, like I have to keep asking because I don't really believe it, or I need someone to tell me again, because the past response kind of flew out in one ear and out the other, right? So we kind of go back and back and back, asking the same questions a lot. And, sometimes, but we're never really satisfied. So the compulsive side of it, we do it a lot, but it doesn't really help. It just creates more anxiety, it just builds, just like in that picture, like all the swirls around that guy's head could kind of build. Okay, so it becomes a bigger and bigger kind of a thing. All right. Let's see. Okay, so reasons why we seek reassurance. All right, so there's some typical categories of areas where we would ask for reassurance. All right, so one has to do with relationship security. So if you're worried about the status of your relationship with somebody, you might start to ask them a lot about whether you guys are okay. Are we good? Are you still like me? Are you mad at me? Are we okay after the fight we had yesterday? You're going to leave me? Is it going to be okay? Right? So that's kind of a relational kind of reassurance seeking. Another time it might be about health or wellness, right? If you're worried that you're sick, you might be asking, like, am I going to be okay? How long is it going to take for me to get well? You think this treatment will work for me? You think I'm going to get sick again? Right? And there's a lot of anxiety about what's going to happen with your health or your wellness. Okay. Personal needs. So just wondering if you're going to get your basic needs met. Am I going to, get my check this month? Am I going to be able to pay my rent? Or am I going to get the food I need? Am I going to get kicked out of my apartment? There might be certain things you're really worried about and that you're going to ask a lot of questions about because it provokes a lot of anxiety. Okay. Also related to that is the when questions, because sometimes we might know something's probably going to happen, but we have no idea what the timeline's going to be, right? Like we might know, things are going to get better at a certain point, or you're going to get certain, whatever, but you just don't know when. So you might ask a lot, when do you think it's going to happen? Do you think it's going to be next week? Do you think it's going to be a month from now? You think it's going to be 5 months from now? How do you know? And you might ask over and over because it's hard not to know. Okay. Where I work in the hospital, people might ask that about when they might get a privilege or when they might get discharged, because there's not a set time. Sometimes it really can vary depending on the person and the situation, and it's really hard not to know. Okay. Also, decision making. Sometimes we seek reassurance about whether we made the right decision, or what decision should we make, or did I do something that was the right thing? I don't know if I should regret it or do it over again, or and we worry about whether we did the right thing, and so we seek reassurance about that. Okay, and sometimes the need for reassurance is triggered by the fact that we were disappointed in the past and we're afraid of a negative outcome in the future, right? So let's say relationship security. Let's say somebody broke up with you or left you, and you're worried it's going to happen again. So you might be really anxious about, is this current person in my life going to leave me? Are we still okay? Is our relationship okay? Right? So I'm afraid the past disappointment is going to repeat itself. And like I was hinting throughout, like if we really struggle with the not knowing, with the uncertainty, that could really trigger us to try to seek some kind of certainty. And that's what we're trying to get from reassurance. All right, let's see. So there's almost like a cycle that we could think about. So, and we could go round and around this cycle without any clear satisfaction. So what happens is there's some kind of an uncertainty trigger, right? So that's related to one of these areas up here, right? So relationship security, health and wellness, personal needs, decision-making. So that's an area of uncertainty, right? And it leads to some anxiety, some fears about what's going to happen, doubt about, whether it's going to work out or not. And so those feelings build up in you, and then it's hard to contain yourself or reassure yourself. So you seek reassurance from someone on the outside. And then they say whatever they're going to say. They try to reassure you. Maybe they try to tell you everything's going to be okay, or this is why it's going to work out, or whatever. And you might temporarily feel better and okay, all right. But then it's hard to hold on to the response. So the feeling of relief doesn't last, and you go back to the uncertainty, back to the anxiety, and round the circle again. And the cycle could intensify, right? It doesn't just always stay at one level. Like, the more you seek reassurance, the more you'll keep seeking reassurance sometimes, because the anxiety just continues to build, okay? All right, so here's an image too. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but in Buddhist philosophy, they talk about this quote unquote hungry ghost. And the hungry ghost is often talked about in addiction because it's always seeking something from the outside to make it feel better on the inside. But the thing it's seeking doesn't really satisfy it. So it keeps eating more and more and more, but it's never really satisfied. It's kind of like if you're lonely and you eat cupcakes, the cupcakes might make you feel better temporarily, but it's not really taking away your loneliness. So you have to keep eating more and more cupcakes trying to feel better, but it's not really the right medicine for the cure, so to speak. So reassurance isn't really the right medicine for the cure of handling uncertainty. It doesn't really cure it, although it temporarily soothes you. See how that works? So therefore, you're like a hungry ghost seeking more and more reassurance, but it never really satisfies. Okay, and we need to know, because this is a relational activity, seeking reassurance, it has an impact on your relationships, okay? That behavior in itself can impact the way the relationships are. So in some ways, if you ask a lot, you might be training people to tell you what you want to hear, even if it's not what they actually think. You're almost like seeking a certain answer, and so they start to give it to you. And so they may or may not be fully honest because they just want to make you feel better. So they just tell you what you want to hear. So you got to ask yourself, like, am I really okay with that? Do I really want people to maybe not be fully honest and just tell me what I want to hear? Is that really what I want from my relationship? Another thing is that, like, they may or may not say what you feel is the right thing. They might be honest, but it's not reassuring to you, and you might end up getting mad at them because they didn't say what you were hoping they would say. So that could put some tension in the relationship. The other thing that puts tension in the relationship, probably the most prominent thing, is that it starts to drive people nuts. I mean, some people are very patient and they'll continue to try to give you reassurance and answer your questions. But when you do it over and over and over again, it can wear people down. Even if they try not to show it, if they're really nice to you and they like you, it gets exhausting because they know they can't fully satisfy you, yet you keep asking. So you got to understand, like, how the other person might feel when you keep doing that. It's not just about you and what you need. If you're in a relationship, you got to consider the other person's point of view. And if they get frustrated enough, they might withdraw and avoid you because they don't want to hear it anymore, or they might start attacking you and being like, all right, I heard it, all right, I told you already, right? And then that might make you upset. So in addition to the worries about the uncertain situation, now you're dealing with someone who's mad at you, okay? But you got to understand that's an expected reaction from somebody, because being asked the same thing over and over again drives people nuts, okay? Just keeping it real, okay, guys? Okay, so breaking the cycle, All right. So we talked about it being a cycle. So how do we break the cycle? So one thing is to stop asking for reassurance. Okay, that's one key component of the cycle, that as soon as the anxiety rises, you deal with the anxiety by engaging in this behavior of seeking reassurance, but it never really works. So try just cutting it out altogether, or at least greatly reducing it, and see what happens. You might still have to feel the feelings that are left over, the anxieties and the doubts and all the stuff you have, but there's other ways to cope with those feelings besides getting someone to reassure you. Okay. When you do get reassurance, let's say you do still get it once in a while, try to practice really taking it in. Okay. For more than like a couple of minutes. Try to remind yourself of what the person said, write it down, post it up if you have to, and try to reassure yourself. Don't rely on somebody else. Make it your responsibility to reassure you. Okay. And like I was saying, one of the key tricks that we have to deal with in a lot of situations, not just this one, is getting more comfortable with uncertainty and anxiety. So being mindful of the feelings and just allowing them to be there, knowing that everything in life is really uncertain, even if we try to trick ourselves into feeling otherwise. The more we accept and be comfortable with uncertainty, the better off we're going to be. Okay. And whatever it is happens, we'll figure out a way to deal with it. You don't always have to, try to control it in advance. Okay. So there's a bigger plan out there. Everything will work out in the end, hopefully, in whatever way it's meant to. And, when it happens, and we'll get through it. And so another thing you could do to deal with the anxiety is to use, anxiety reducing techniques such as meditation, breathing, emotion regulation skills from DBT, so forth. And if you calm your body, you might also calm your mind and calm the thoughts that are driving you to want to seek reassurance. Okay, so it's like a mind-body connection. And okay, so last one. There's also a difference between reassurance seeking and support seeking. So support seeking might be the more acceptable alternative that we can try. Okay, so let's say reassurance seeking is like seeking certainty that you're safe from harm and trying to get someone else to remove your doubts and fears and to put certainty in place. But because that's impossible, that's why it never works. Okay, support seeking, on the other hand, is like accepting that there is uncertainty there, but getting someone to support you in coping with the uncertainty. So it's more of a radical acceptance of that reality of uncertainty rather than, driving towards certainty, if that makes sense. Okay, so get the support to deal with the feelings, but not to create a different reality. All right, so I hope that helps and makes sense. So just be honest with yourself. It's not always the nicest thing to think, well, I'm one of those people that seeks a lot of reassurance, but it's okay. Just, now that you know, if that's true, just take some tips and work on it, right? Nobody's perfect. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you next time.